Hey, Mike with Nerd Problems Gaming here, the channel where we go through the good and bad of everything nerdy to make sure you spend your time on the best of the best. And in today's video, I'll be doing a review of the Shining board game, Escape from the Overlook Hotel. So let's get into it. So first, before I jump into my review, I'll go into the actual game itself so you can see a little bit on how the game is played. But the game is rather simple and easy to learn and pretty self-explanatory. And I don't want to reveal too much about the specifics of the game and everything that's inside, because the game itself is really more of an escape room, but in board game format. So if you know the secrets and the puzzles, it kind of takes a lot of the fun out of it. But we'll jump into a little bit of how it's played and what the game looks like so you have a better idea, and then I'll jump into my full review from there. Alright guys, so now that we've got the game out, I'll tell you a little bit about how to play and what the game's all about. So if you're not familiar with the movie The Shining, basically takes place where a family goes to stay at the Overlook Hotel, and the dad, Jack, is kind of a recovering alcoholic, and it's his only way to really find a job at this point. He's also a writer, but a struggling writer trying to write his masterpiece, and so him and his family go to the Overlook Hotel for him to try and finish his book and kind of get things back on track for his family. And so, unfortunately though, the Overlook Hotel has a history of the caretakers for the winter going crazy and murdering their family. And it seems to be happening again in the Overlook Hotel with Jack and his family. And so the game starts to take place right when Jack really starts to take off and go crazy. And so that's really where you jump into the game when you start playing. So as you start the game, you're going to start in the kitchen. So you'll place this out on the table. So you'll also start with your Wendy stand, and she will be in the kitchen, and you'll have a couple options where you can look or you can use an item. And so you'll go through and actually match your character up to the numbers that are located on the board, and then you'll go ahead and look up those codes in the various journals to unravel more of the story. And so that's pretty much how the game takes place. You'll move around, looking in different areas, trying to use different items. When you unlock Danny and find him within the hotel, he can either shine on things or look at things. And so you'll get basically his perspective as well as Wendy's perspective as you go through the hotel. And then as you play, you're going to reveal various different cards, which might lead to more clues and areas and things you can explore. It could be items as well that you might find as you play. And then once you find items, it gives you the ability to use them on various aspects in the game as well. And so like I said, you're going to encounter various puzzles where Wendy and Danny are trying to escape from the Overlook Hotel from Jack, who's going on a murderous rampage. And so that's about all I'm going to go through on how to play the game, because like I said, it is pretty much an escape room in a box, so I don't really want to reveal any of the puzzles or the storyline beyond that of what you're going to encounter in the hotel. But now that you know a little bit on the game and how it's played, let's jump into my review. So like I said, the game itself is pretty much an escape room in a box, which is a pretty cool concept. If you've ever done escape rooms, they're a ton of fun. It's kind of like unraveling a mystery as you play the game with a group of friends. Now the game says you can play one or more players, and it even says up to 99 players, which seems a little ridiculous. But again, similar to other escape rooms that I've done, it's usually most fun if you're playing anywhere from around 3 to 5 players. When you start to get into larger numbers, it can become a little bit cumbersome, and it's kind of like there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right? And so typically what we found is that it usually works out better, again, in that kind of 3 to 5, 3 to 6 range when you're playing. So when we went through, there was 4 of us playing, but I've done escape rooms in the past where there was around 10 to 15 people, and that just ended up being too many people to fully experience everything that it had to offer. So I think the same would really apply in a game like this as well. Now the game itself follows the storyline of the Shining movie, and so I think it does a really great job of immersing you in that experience, helping you experience and feel the tension and the suspense and the horror that's going on throughout the movie while you play this game. So that was really cool, and I enjoyed that aspect of this game a lot. kind of puts you in the shoes of Wendy and Danny Torrance and being them trying to survive the crazed husband Jack and escaping death as he chases you down throughout the Overlook Hotel. And so that was really cool. And especially when you're trying to figure out the puzzles and figure out other aspects of the game, it kind of raises that tension like, oh my gosh, I need to figure this out really fast because he's trying to kill us. And so it has a cool mechanic where if you make a mistake or you basically look up the wrong code in the book, which is kind of trying your solution to the problem, where you flip up a card, if you do get the wrong solution or if what you did wasn't the actual one you were supposed to be doing at that point, it gets them that much closer to Jack being able to murder you. So it adds to that tension of the game as well. And so if he does happen to murder you as you're playing, it's not the end of the world. You just take out one of those cards, reshuffle it, and try and solve the puzzle again. But it does create that tension as you play, giving you the feeling that you're actually there in the Overlook Hotel, which is actually pretty cool. Now, the suspense and intense is there in this game. One thing to understand is the game itself is incredibly hard. If you are not planning on using hints to try and figure out some of these puzzles, it could take you anywhere from 30 minutes or more just to figure out a single puzzle. And in some cases, it's not actually your fault not being able to solve it. There's some minor issues in the game, which I'll get to in a bit. But just understand going into this game, it is extremely challenging to figure out the puzzles as you go. And so I think for that reason, the game isn't necessarily best suited for casual gamers. And you're going to really want to play this with a crowd that is going to get into the game, that maybe doesn't get super frustrated easily, because you're going to have to try a lot of different things and really pay attention to detail as you play this game. So if you're trying to play this game kind of while doing other things or having a conversation, it probably won't work that well, because you really need to focus on what's happening to be able to figure out these puzzles and get past certain areas as you play. So keep that in mind when you pick this up. You're going to want a dedicated crew that's playing with you when you play this game. So like I said, in some of the areas online, they say that this game takes a couple hours to play. And I would highly disagree, especially if you're not going to use hints when you're trying to beat this game. Like I said, the four of us were really focused on it, and some of the puzzles took a long time, and overall to play all the acts and get through the final area, we felt it could take anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. It took us around 8 hours to get through everything. And so depending on how fast you solve the puzzles, expect to play pretty much an entire day going through the acts. Now again, they actually separate the acts into different parts where you can stop midway through the game and then pick it up at another date. But with that being said, it's kind of hard to do that as well, because you need to be remembering certain clues and certain things that happened prior to that point as you continue to play the game. So when we played it for about 3 or 4 hours the first day, and then again about 4 to 5 hours the next day when we played. And so it was still pretty fresh for us, but we definitely did not think it was going to take that long to play the game going in. So like I said, have a long playtime expectation when you play this game. Now, some things that I didn't necessarily like about this game, some of the wording on a few of the puzzles was very confusing and very vague. And so I think part of that fed into why it took us a long time to beat some aspects of the game. Because again, we didn't want to use hints when we played. We wanted to figure it out as a group. And so there are some puzzles that we were able to figure out relatively quickly, but then there are others that took a long time, 30 minutes to an hour sometimes, to figure out a puzzle, just because the wording was very vague and not very helpful. Another instance we actually ran into while playing the game is that we had the solution, but didn't realize it because the numbering of certain tiles didn't have the numbers underlined. So for example, we were playing thinking that the code we had to put in ended with 60, but it actually ended with 09. And so it looked like 60. We didn't realize it was upside down, and there wasn't any indication that it was upside down. And so that really threw us off for about a half an hour to 40 minutes until we decided to look up a hint and found out that we used the wrong number just because we read it wrong. And so that was definitely frustrating, because then we realized that we basically wasted an hour when we already had the solution. So we could have moved the game along a lot faster. And so there are various puzzles like that that were pretty obscure when it came to finding the solution. And there was even aspects where we had the solution, but we didn't do it in the way that the puzzle was telling us to. And so we ended up taking a chance and just trying it, and it worked out when we got to that point. But when we looked up the hints for that actual solution, once we tried the one that did work, the way you were supposed to solve the puzzle was pretty crazy and out there, and I think a lot of people would not be able to do that. I would never even think to do that. And so like I said, this game is very challenging, and there's certain aspects that will leave you frustrated as you play. And so I think they're solvable for the most part without using hints. But with some of the wording and how things are laid out, there are some challenges that I think are probably impossible for your average player and even your hardcore player going into this game. Also, like I said, the gameplay time we were playing was very long. It took around 6 to 8 hours for us to finish it. And actually, when we got to the final act, we were pretty burnt out and just looked up the solution, because how the puzzle was laid out, when you get to that point, it tells you to put all the previous cards away, but then as you're going through this puzzle, you pretty much needed to know some of the information that you had on those earlier cards to be able to figure it out. And so certainly, yes, that added to the challenge, but it got to the point where it's like we didn't want to spend another 2 hours trying to figure it out, and we just looked it up at that point. And even when we used the hints to figure out the puzzle, they were so unhelpful that we had to look up the final solution just to even have an idea of how we were supposed to solve the puzzle. And so again, if you enjoy that, spending hours trying to figure out a specific point of the game just to get past it, great. But for us, again, if we could spend maybe 20 minutes to 30 minutes on a puzzle max, that's great. But we definitely didn't want to spend hours just sitting in the same spot trying to figure out how to get past it. So I think there could be a little bit of improvement on the wording in some parts, but I don't think it was a detriment enough to make you not want to play the game. But despite those flaws, I really enjoyed this game. We had a lot of fun with it. I think you just need to have proper expectations when you go into playing the game to really enjoy the experience. So playing with the right people, expecting it's going to take a while, and understanding that there's certain points that might be frustrating and they're probably worth looking up a hint to get past it just to move the game along. But when I look at this game, I kind of look at it again like it's an escape room in a box. So if you look at your typical escape room, you're maybe there for an hour or 2 hours tops. You're each person spending $20 to $30 most likely to go through that escape room, where again, you can get a game like this, split it amongst 4 or 5 people, and you're each paying, $5-10 a person to be able to play this game and experience this escape room. So I think there's a lot of value in this game. Unfortunately, I don't really think there's much replay value in the game. Maybe if you set it down on the shelf and revisited it, 2-3 years down the road, you might not remember exactly how the puzzles work to get past them, but it's not something you're definitely going to play and then play again a couple weeks later with another group of friends, because you're going to know the solutions to the puzzles for the escape room. And so I think that would just take a lot of fun out of it. So it is definitely a great value. You're definitely going to get a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of play time for what you pay for this game, but I just don't think the replay value is necessarily there. But overall, the game is a ton of fun. It's suspenseful, it's scary, but just keep in mind it's very challenging, probably not best suited for casual players, and you are going to need to dedicate some time to play this game all the way through. But let me know in the comments below if you've played escape room games like this, if you're a fan of The Shining, if you think this game looks cool, let me know in the comments below. If there's other games like this I should check out, let me know as well. If you'd like to pick up a copy of this game, there'll be a link in the description below where you can do so. And if you guys like this video, be sure to smash that like button, as it really helps out the channel. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications to get the latest updates of new nerd videos we put out. And if you'd like to help us support the channel, pick out content and more, become a patron of ours at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Patreon. And if you'd like to plug into our live streams and Let's Plays we do on the channel, you can follow us over on Twitch at nerdproblemsgaming.com/Twitch. But once again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you more soon.